Hey, what's going on? This is Brian Pickowicz, and today we're going to talk about the top 8 things that I wish I knew when I first started my fitness journey when it comes to nutrition. Now, the point of this video is going to be part of a 3-part series. I'm going to talk about the things I wish I knew when it came to training, and then I'm going to talk about the things I wish I knew about habits and mindset. And the reason why is because all 3 of those sections really are the focus points that pull this transformation together. You can't get an amazing result with your fitness without the proper nutrition. You can't get amazing results without going to the gym, but you also have to have the proper mindset, discipline, and habits in place too. And so my point with this series is going to be to give you them in a bite-sized way and really provide you with as much value so that wherever you're at in your journey, you can look at the things that keep coming up that maybe you're seeing on Instagram, maybe you're seeing on YouTube, and they're just not practical, they're not sensible, and implement new strategies in your daily life so that you see great results, but ultimately they last too. And so these points are going to come from where I first started up until now, because there's been so many different cycles of my own fitness journey, whether that's as a coach, as a trainer, and as a former college athlete turned bodybuilder turned lifestyle physique figure. I don't even know what I would call myself for a little period in there. I was just trying to find my next level, and now I run marathons and more into functional strength training, and it's just been this full journey that has been amazing. But there's been a lot of things that I've realized that the fitness industry and that the nutrition coaching industry and all the different aspects of social media content don't really address and aren't really helpful. And so with this video, as you're watching it, if you love it, give it a like, comment below which point stands out the most to you, and if you love this channel, give it a subscription, because I really appreciate your support as we're putting out more content. And so today what I want to start with is understanding that calories are the most important thing. And the reason why this is so important is because if we look at an aggregate of what our body needs, whether you're trying to gain muscle, gain weight, or lose weight, it really comes down to where are our calories at for our basal metabolic rate. And all that means when I talk about BMR is what our body naturally needs in order to preserve all of this. So when you're trying to lose weight, you have to eat at a calorie deficit. For me though, I thought I had to eat a certain amount of macros and have a certain food, and I had to take fat burner, and there was different things that, like, when I went into supplement stores, they would tell me like, oh, you need to take a protein shake because it's gonna help you lose weight. It's not actually misleading fact, but it's not also true, because I don't need a protein shake in order to lose weight. I need to eat at a calorie deficit. Where a protein shake comes into hand is obviously I get more protein in my diet, protein's more satiating, and without diving into all the details, it has a higher thermic effect. So if you eat more protein, your body has to utilize more energy to break it down rather than carbohydrates or fat. But nonetheless, when we look at the whole, it's really about calories. And so for me, I didn't really understand the idea that I needed to just eat more food. And then when I did, I was overeating drastically, because I thought if I put more food in my body, I'd be able to gain more muscle. And there's a point where getting overweight is diminishing return, because you're no longer actually fueling your body, you're just storing weight. And so if you're trying to lose weight, the most important thing is calories. If you're trying to gain weight, the most important thing is still calories. Now, obviously macronutrients play a role in there, but rather than thinking that you have to be on a certain diet, rather than thinking you have to be on the perfect macronutrient portion, if you are starting out and you just focus on where your calories are at, you are going to see progress. And now the second point of that, and I think this really kind of pulls it together, is track your food. I didn't track my food at first. At first I was getting ready to go from high school sports to then college sports. I didn't try out, and I was like, I want to get bigger. I think that if I get bigger, I'll have the confidence to go try out. And as I started to eat more food, I was eating like corned beef hash, I was eating eggs, I was eating oatmeal, I would have sugar in my oatmeal. And the reason why is because I was just trying to eat as much food as possible, because I didn't know how much I actually needed. I wasn't tracking and didn't have a sense of accountability. And then once I started tracking my food, I saw, okay, I actually only need this much, because at this point I start to lose weight or I gain weight, and having that solid foundation of understanding how much my body needed gave me so much more freedom. I remember my first bodybuilding contest, I went from 250 pounds after playing college football and everyone telling me to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I went from 250 pounds in 7 months. I went down 195 pounds to win my contest. I would eat a bag of pretzels. I would eat pizza sometimes. I would eat frozen yogurt, and all I did was track it. And that gave me so much freedom with my diet. But I didn't know that I could do that at first. It took me those first 2 years of really getting into the process to learn that once I learned the nutrition fundamentals. And so for you, tracking your food is a great tool for understanding what your body needs, where you're at, and also how to be more flexible with your diet. And so once you get that foundation, the next thing is there's no such thing as a special food or a magic food that's going to make you lose weight. Now, this comes from me working as a nutritional advisor in Vitamin World. I was the assistant manager at a store when I was in college. I worked there for 2 years, and I learned a tremendous amount, but one of the things I always was bothered by were other salesmen on the floor who didn't understand the fundamentals of nutrition. They didn't understand how things actually worked, and they were selling products because they were saying, oh, well, this Garcinia cambogia, is that what it's called, helps you with your appetite. Now, that is true, that it does help suppress appetite in some studies, but at the same time, it actually doesn't help you if you're eating more food. Like if you're just force feeding yourself, or if you're not keeping yourself at a calorie deficit, it's not going to help you lose weight. And so I remember always hearing that there was this food, or reading magazines that food was a magic food, or this food has this magical thing that will help you lose weight. And people would always come in and ask me these questions, and it was always like, no, that's not true. It really comes down to what is the macronutrient makeup of it, what is the micronutrient makeup of it, meaning what are the vitamins like, how many minerals do they have, what's actually in the food that you're eating, and shifting from seeing like that there's magical food or there's special food to seeing that there's just food. Like there's just food. I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, oh, well, I want to have a cheat meal. And it's like, well, why call it a cheat meal? Why not just call it pizza? Why not just call it what it is, and then you can actually just calculate how much pizza you're going to eat in your head. And if you go over, who cares? It's not the end of the world. But seeing that food is one of the most fundamental ways to have a better relationship with food. And that leads me into point number 4, and that is mindful eating techniques. So I wish that I knew this when I first started. And it's fascinating for me to think in my own journey as a coach and as a former athlete. When I was competing in bodybuilding, I could eat 4,000 calories in an off season and I wouldn't really gain much weight. I would eat 3,000 calories and I'd be like, all right, it's fine, because I'm going to go train for an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever amount of time I was going to do, not to burn it off, just because that was my lifestyle. And once I stopped doing that, my mindset was still connected towards eating all this food. And so I realized that I had this different habit. It wasn't that I had a poor relationship with food, but I had this different habit for this new lifestyle. And what mindful eating taught me was that I didn't have to engage in the habit anymore. I could separate myself. And the best way to think of mindful eating is it's cueing in to what you're feeling in that moment. So mindful eating allows you to be curious, allows you to think, okay, do I actually want the almonds, or am I just stress eating? Do I actually want this food, or is there something I'm avoiding, or am I bored, or what's triggering this, without judgment, without anything. And then being able to sit with the food as I'm actually eating it and just enjoying it, because it's so easy to just eat food. Think of, like, I just had some popcorn before I made this video, and popcorn is like a food that we eat and we just like shovel it down because we want to get to the next handful of popcorn. And what mindfulness has taught me is like, no, just eat the food that you have, and then just eat the food you have and just enjoy it. And so if you're someone who's challenged with overeating, mindfulness makes it really simple to just step back and observe your hunger cues. And when you observe your hunger cues, you can see what's actually going on, and you don't need as much food in that day. And so leading off of that, I kind of alluded to this at first, but get rid of cheat meals. Get rid of the idea of cheat meals. And the reason why I say that to myself is because when I thought of cheat meals, it was this idea that people were like, oh, well, you should go enjoy yourself because it's a cheat meal. And full open honesty, when I first got into bodybuilding, I had a perfectly fine relationship with food. Like, food was never scarce in my house. Like, it wasn't something that like was a reward. It was just food. And so I remember I went through bodybuilding and I was just doing really well. And as I got to the end of my contest, everyone told me like, oh, well, you get to have such a big cheat meal, and now you can cheat, and now you can eat whatever you want, now you can eat whatever you want. And I didn't have anyone telling me this stuff around me. And I didn't have anyone saying like, no, dude, you're good. Just like eat something and then like enjoy, like you've worked so hard for this. But what happened was everyone was telling me this, and I started to believe it. I was like, yeah, you know what? I can get a bunch of ice cream sandwiches, and then I can go get candy. I think I spent $15 to $20 on just junk food for after my first contest. And then as I got done the contest, I didn't have a shut-off valve. It was something that I was so wrapped up in the idea that I had accomplished something, I had won, that I rebounded hard. And this is really common with a lot of people in bodybuilding. And so as I hit my goal, it got really hard for me to get back on the diet. I would try. And at one point I had to like stop. I was like, hey, this isn't helpful anymore. Stop with the cheat meals. Just eat normal food. If you eat food that is in a calorie surplus, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to ruin your day. Just get back on the wagon. And I think I ended up putting on like 20 pounds in like a month, just from the actual weight gain from the post-contest. And then once that happened, I was like, okay, let's sit down, let's stop, let's be able to adjust this all. And after fighting that binge behavior for about a month and a half to 2 months, I was finally able to just start again. But it took gaining 20 to 25 pounds and getting to the point where I was cheating so much that I was almost feeling sick, that I snapped out of it, and I was able to really start to get back on the wagon of feeling good about myself. And so the reason why I don't like cheat meals now is because it puts certain foods at a higher level of reward than other foods. And I'm not saying that certain foods aren't more enjoyable. Like, I love Greek food. It's one of my favorites. I love buffalo chicken calzones. I love frozen yogurt. These things matter. But at the same time, if you think about it, if you're saying, okay, I'm just going to have one cheat meal, I'm just going to have one cheat meal, I'm going to have one cheat meal, and then you go throughout the rest of the day, and then you have that cheat meal, that starts the cycle of like, well, you already cheated, so screw it. You can have another meal. You can have this other thing. Mark, that's a cheat day. And it just isn't helpful. It's not a helpful relationship with food. Whereas if we say, hey, you know, I'm going to go eat a buffalo chicken calzone, have a great meal, boom. Maybe do I want a cookie after? Maybe. But when we're not putting so much emphasis on the fact that we're eating the food, we're able to step back and not feel like we're powerless to it. One thing, I remember a conversation I had with a client once, and they were like, oh, pizza's my weakness. And I was like, is it really? Or do you just like it? And they're like, I just like it. Light bulb. Happened. It worked for her. So these are some things that like I've realized about myself and just as a coach that help people move forward in their journey. And so the next thing is you don't need to eat everything. And I remember this is something that Lindsay and I started to really implement about 3 or 4 years ago. But I remember always going and we'd get things and I would have my own portion, she'd have her own portion. And it was not necessary because we could easily have eaten half each. And so I realized at one point, like I said, 3 years ago, that we could just get one thing and split it. And that was half the calories, half the amount, and it was just as satiating. And so sometimes we have FOMO with food, like it's the holidays, and it's like, okay, I know my grandmother's apple pie is only going to be there right now. I know that the food that I want is only here right now. I'm going to eat all of it. But you don't have to. And that's a key with mindful eating, is that you can step back and enjoy it for what it is. But you don't have to eat all of it. You don't have to eat everything off your plate. You don't have to go for a second plate just because it's there. You can even, let's say you're having a nice meal. You could put it on the plate and then eat it tomorrow. Or if you're someone who's eating out at restaurants, you can ask beforehand, like, hey, can you box up half that right now? I'm only gonna eat half of it right now. And it allows you to establish a better pattern for you to move through your nutrition without feeling like you have to eat everything on your plate. And I think that that's an input that we've received from most of our families, like, oh, you have to eat everything on your plate, or that's all there is, and just not true. It's not practical for right now. And so the next thing is focus on the quality of food you're eating for your body rather than just looking at the calories. So before I said calories over everything else, but how our food interacts with our body matters. So there's certain foods that I eat, and when I eat them, my body doesn't feel good. A good example of that is that I don't like to eat a whole lot of dairy because I tend to get bloated. I don't like to eat a whole lot of processed sugar because I don't feel good. Personally, I like to stick to a more ketogenic diet in the morning, low carb diet, and then at night I might have some carbohydrates. And when I eat that way, I'm not eating butters and creams and all these really inflammatory fats. I'm eating healthy fats like whole eggs and avocado and almonds. And when we listen to our body, it gives us the ability to make choices that are filling, that are fruitful in how we feel. And when we feel better, we make better choices. And for me, when I first started tracking food, I kind of had the if it fits your macros mindset. And that flexibility served me to some extent, but once I got to the point of actually tuning into my body, it made it really helpful for me to understand, like, hey, certain foods make me feel so much better, and the more I'm in tune to that, the better I do my nutrition, the better my energy levels are and throughout the day, and everything else follows through. It's like, right now I have so much energy to do this video, and it's almost 8:30 p.m. because we've been just crushing some different projects through the day. I wanted to make this video, and my nutrition has been good, so that allows me the energy to follow through. And so wherever you're at, apply it to your body, and it will continue to serve you long term. And now the last thing is thinking that you can burn it off. And this came through when I stopped bodybuilding, because then I wasn't doing the hours of cardio, I wasn't training as excessively, and I realized, like, hey, I don't have to think that if I eat this food I can burn it off tomorrow. I just need to be able to control myself now. And what I see happen is there's a lot of people who are like, okay, well, I can eat this food, rationalize it, because tomorrow I'm going to work harder. But just like cheat meals, that gives us a poor relationship with food, because we're favoring the food right now and saying, like, oh, I can have this if. Rather than saying, do I want this? Am I hungry? What is most important for me right now? Is it this food? Is it the connection I'm getting from having this food? Or is it my long-term goals? Am I not actually hungry? Am I bored? When we tune into our hunger cues, we're able to actually adapt where we're at and see that we don't need to rationalize poor eating habits for tomorrow. And if you want the food, you can just have it. Just eat the food. Just eat the food. If you want the food, eat the food. It's more important that you have an extra 250 calories today than feeling suppressed, feeling restricted, and then going and having 1,000 calories an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, tomorrow. Like, this restriction mindset leads us so that when we have one meal, we think, oh, screw it, I fucked up. Everything's over. I need to now go and pop all the rest of the tires. It's not the case. Step back, ask yourself what you need, and then cue into how you're going to be able to move yourself forward. And so these are the 8 points that I have learned over the course of my journey as my own being in fitness, as a coach, and just things that have really given me some grounding over the years. And I hope that it is helpful to you. I hope that it gives you some focus in your journey too. So if you love this video, give it a thumbs up, comment below, share this, and more than anything, thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you're crushing in your journey, and just remember to keep your pace. I'll see you.